Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Welcome back to the Jeff Crilley Show. My next guest considers himself a real artist and has grave concerns, pun intended, about the cheap props that you can get at some Halloween stores. He considers his craft a calling, and he wants to know what do you want on your tombstone? James Sale joins me from floatingphantoms.com. James, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here and hope to scare up the audience a little bit.
Hey, but we need a rim shot. So, James, tell me how this all began for you.
Well, actually, it was kind of a fluke that I got into the industry. I was actually a software engineer for a major telecom company, and we used to celebrate Halloween big time. And we had competitions between the different departments. And one year we had to set up a haunted house within the office, and I built a life-size floating ghost to put in it.
Wow.
And everybody was liked it real well and thought I ought to start selling it. And then I found out that there was a trade show specific to Halloween. So the next year or a couple years later, I perfected the item a little bit, took it to the show, thinking I would sell it to haunt enthusiasts, home enthusiasts, people who are interested in Halloween, but kind of want to do some decorations. And I found out that my main customer ended up being amusement parks all over the country.
Wow.
And so I started selling to them. Six Flags in Arlington is one of my big customers. Astro World down in Houston before they closed up. Busch Gardens. They ended up buying my floating Phantom. And so it just took off from there.
And one of the things that impresses me about you, James, is that this is a passion for you, and it's not about throwing something together. You really look at this as an art form, don't you?
Well, I look at it as it's for one thing, it's fun for me. I enjoy trying to come up with new items, but I look at the industry and see items that are out there are just they're junk. They don't hold up. They don't. You buy something and it might make it through Halloween. You're lucky if you can use it a second time. And so I kind of design my products that will hold up and are very unique looking, different than what you find in the common Halloween store. So it became a passion of trying to figure out how to make something that was people would really like, but also would be a good value for what they're getting.
And at one point you had a Halloween store, right?
Yeah. As I got into the industry and I realized it's a big industry. It's over $6 billion now.
Wow.
It's just second to Christmas in its income. And so I thought, I should see about getting into the store business. But I didn't like the typical Halloween store that's a seasonal type store. It pops up and then they close down because their product wasn't all that great. And it was the same product everybody else had. So what I did is I created a store that had very high quality, all adult costumes and products, because that was a segment that was not being catered to very well, and it was a fast-growing segment. And so I opened up a store for about 3 years called Floating Phantoms, and we had some very unique items. And the neat thing about it was, since I wasn't a franchise, I could actually look and get unique items and not have to worry about, do I got to sell it to the masses to make money? I find the unique stuff and have it in the store. And so I got customers who were like coming all over the place from Oklahoma City, because they knew I would have a unique selection of product.
So these days, your business has transitioned, and now you specialize in doing yard displays?
Yeah, one of the things I thought about in my store when I had it was how to do things different than the other stores. And one of the things I was going to do is provide services. And one of those services was doing professional decorating. And so I always had that back in my mind. So some of the product I actually made was already geared towards that I was selling in my store. So I just took that and went the extra step and now have a separate business that's all I do is I go out and set up people's yards for Halloween.
So this is your busy season.
Yes, it is.
What will the next few weeks look like for you?
It's going to be kind of hectic, I think. Basically, it takes me pretty much a day to set up a yard. So I got to spend time going out and seeing what the yards are like and how to set it up, because it's all custom designed and So I kind of I basically build a real elaborate graveyard. So I look and see what the yard is like and how to shape that graveyard to match their yard. So that takes quite a bit of time. I'm having to go out to places and see what it's like and work with a customer and see if there's any specific things they want. Because again, it's all custom. So whatever they may have in mind, I try to incorporate that into it. So yeah, it's pretty busy.
My guest right now, James Sale, he is the CEO and founder of Floating Phantoms. That's floatingphantoms.com. This kind of reminds me of the whole theme around Christmas where people will hire somebody to come decorate their yard, and some of these elaborate displays we see around the Park Cities, the homeowner didn't do those.
Right, and actually that's where I kind of got the idea. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the stuff that happens in Halloween is some sort of spinoff of Christmas. Years ago, we didn't have Halloween lights. Now you can find all sorts of Halloween lights, in the stores. And I've noticed around here that a lot of people hire people to put up the Christmas lights. And I got thinking, well, if they're willing to do that, there's probably a market for the same thing for Halloween. The big difference being is Christmas decorations really don't take up much space. They're not really that hard to put up. Halloween stuff is big, it's bulky, and most people don't really know how to set it up to make it look good or what, and so it's a lot more effort. And I thought, well, that's usually what people look for is if they can't do it, they want to see if there's somebody out there who can do it for them. And so that's kind of how I came up with the idea.
When you're at a cocktail party and somebody asks you what you do for a living, how do you describe what you do?
Well, that's interesting. I usually hand my card first and see if they can guess. Give them a card and see if they got an idea what it is. And then I tell them, I said, basically, I'm in the entertainment industry, really. If you look at it, I entertain. It's just a little on the odd side that my entertainment is scaring the living daylights out of people.
So give us an idea. Do you have like a workshop in your home, or where do you make these elaborate displays?
Well, for now, this is a part-time business for me, so I do everything out of my house. And a lot of the stuff is custom work, so I basically work in the garage and build a lot of the product. If I don't actually build it, I design it and I do have companies that build stuff for me who is better set up for more higher volume type stuff. So I work with them and get my orders in plenty of time, and then they ship it to me, and then there's a lot of custom work after that to make sure it works the way I need it to work. So, yeah, most of the stuff's right there at the house and in the garage.
And as a craftsman, are you able to step back from your work and say, now that's a great headstone?
No.
Do people admire your work?
Yeah, I do get a lot of comments. A lot of people say, that's just amazing. But I'm kind of a perfectionist, so when I look at my stuff, I'm going like, nah, that's not any good. And so it takes me forever to build stuff because I'm always like trying to fix it and make it better and stuff. And actually, that's how I got into the business, because the original floating ghost was just a mechanism that a guy on the internet called Doug Ferguson created. It's called a crank mechanism, and everybody in the Honda industry was using it, but it was hard to set up. And so I just took that and made it easier, more turnkey. And I just improved on the product, and that's how I got into the business. So everything I do, I look at and I say, well, how can I do that better? How can I make it look better? How can I make it operate better and function better? And
now give us an idea. You have different packages on your website. What's an entry-level starter kit, and what does it go up to?
Well, my basic package is a full graveyard setup, and it starts at about $2,000. And I come in, I measure your yard, I figure out how to set everything up, I set it all up, make sure it all works, and then after Halloween we take it all down and the customer doesn't have to worry anything about it. So it starts there, and then it goes on up to, depending on what the customer wants, it could be $3,000 or $4,000
really
per yard, depending on how elaborate they get.
And you'll do custom work. If somebody in the Park Cities is listening and says, I want to be the scariest house on the block,
I will try to do what I can, but since it is custom work, there is a pretty long lead time. So what I tell people is if we can set up a basic turnkey for this year, if they're wanting to get going, we can do that. If they have some real elaborate stuff they want to do, I would work with them in the off season. We could set up a totally unique, totally custom, incorporate whatever wild ideas they may have for next year, and really do it up big time for next year, because it does take some time to develop that stuff.
What's the most unusual request you've received since you've been in business? Has anybody asked you to do something that...
I really haven't had any weird requests, because most of the people that come to me, they don't really know what they want. They just want something real unique, real elaborate, and so they kind of come to me for the ideas. I haven't really had too many really wild ones. I have had a couple of people request mazes, and that's one of the things I'm looking into, is to see how I could set up a yard maze for people next year.
Now, James, you brought a couple of guests with you. Can you tell us about your guests?
Well, I've got a couple items here. And obviously this is radio, so you can't see it, but on the video, that probably on the website, it'll definitely be on my website, floatingphantoms.com. We have Lenora here, which is one of the high-end props that I used to sell in my Halloween store.
You name them.
Well, that actually comes with a name.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not quite that demented. But no, that's the actual high-end prop. And it's funny because when I started the store, 2008 is when I had my first year for the store, and you just didn't see things like this in the Halloween stores. And now, every once in a while, you'll see products like this, and it's like, that's interesting how the other stores adapted to what my little store did. But that was that's kind of typical of the stuff that I would have in my store. And on the right here is my original floating phantom. It is the actual
really.
It is the design that I actually sold to the amusement parks. It's not the prototype I built, but it is the first one I actually started selling. I still make those units. Again, that's something that has to be ordered well ahead of time, because they do take a while to make. But that's the actual product. And if you go onto my website, you can actually see a video of the original floating phantom.
Are you always thinking year-round about this season?
Oh, yeah.
Or what can I do next year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've already got a dozen or more items ready to go that I want to try to do next year. Finding the time to do it.
Right. Well, how far will you travel? If somebody in Oklahoma City wanted you to come up and do a display? Probably
not that far. I stick mostly to the Metroplex area, because that is quite a bit of stuff to have to haul around. And again, this still is a part-time business, so I have to kind of balance. I couldn't take a whole lot of time off to do, a lot of distance.
Well, I'm curious, where does Lenora ride? Do you sit her in the passenger seat and go through the the toll booth?
That is pretty funny, because I haven't done that with Lenora. I never thought about that with Lenora. I actually have a bag that the corpse, I guess, body bag that she goes.
Yeah, you were getting some looks as you were coming up the elevator with our other guests.
Yeah, but I have at times, especially when I had my store and I was hauling stuff back and forth, I often had Buddy, I guess you could call my skeleton, sitting in the chair there, and people would be looking over, and then they realize, oh yeah, it's Halloween. I guess that's okay.
Have you ever been pulled over by a cop?
No.
Say, sir, would you step out of the car? We're going to need backup.
That's funny, because on the way over here, I got thinking of, if I got a ticket or somebody the cop might want to look at my back. I said, I don't think you want to see that.
James, floatingphantom.com is the website. That's it for now. We'll see you next week, everybody.